Really, these parents are involved with essentially trafficking their children to a known predator, right?
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.com.
Have you ever needed a licensed therapist to talk about relationship trouble or just everyday situations?
BetterHelp has over 20,000 licensed therapists who are trained to listen and give you unbiased advice.
And the first thing you would do is go to their website by using our link, betterhelp.com/WOAW, which will be linked below.
You answer a few questions and BetterHelp will match you with professionals that have license experience helping people with issues just like yours.
You can connect with them right from your phone, your computer, or even messaging, however you feel comfortable.
You'll be matched with a licensed therapist within 48 hours, so definitely get started today.
Let BetterHelp connect you with your personal therapist by using our link, betterhelp.com/WOAW, and on sign up, enjoy a special discount for your first month on us.
Back to the regularly scheduled program.
Yo, 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 yo.
What up, what up? Hello, coworkers.
What's up,
and
coworkers?
welcome back
To another episode
of the We Outside After Work podcast. I'm your host, Dana.
And I'm everybody's favorite. I'm Aaron. How y'all doing?
How y'all feeling? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's been a long last 2 weeks. It's just been a lot of work. But deep down it's rewarding work. So it's like I'm feeling good. I'm feeling vibrant, you know?
Okay, so we could just get right into our check-in.
Okay.
So if you want to give us some detail of like what you mean by that, like what's been going on.
Well, I started a new job. We've been talking about new jobs for the last couple of episodes. And I'm not used to working with like really genuinely happy people that come to work every day happy to be there. Very limited when it comes to problems and complaints and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like surprising. Like I tell people when I moved to Pennsylvania, I'm from Jersey, so it's like everybody's kind of rude. Naturally, it's like our disposition. Like, we just assholes. But then when you walk down the street and some old lady says, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like, why are you talking to me?
So is this new job in PA?
No, it's in Jersey.
Okay, but they're still really nice.
Yeah, I think they're nice because they feel valued. Like, I've been in a bunch of retail spaces where you got a whole bunch of part-time workers. They don't know what their future holds. They don't know if they get hours tomorrow. They're getting cut. And it's just people just unhappy without benefits and different things.
Right.
So, you know, it feels real good to work in a place and in an environment where people are happy. So
that's good. That reminds me of, I had to call my insurance last week because for some reason there was like an extra $10 added to this month than usual. And apparently because interest rates stay the same, that my insurance went up too. So because of New Jersey and like all this other fuck shit's going on. But the woman that I was speaking to, she was from Virginia. And she was like, she said that. She was like, usually I get people from New Jersey that aren't that nice. But she said, I sound nice. And I told her, I was like, well, I used to work in a call center environment when I first started in IT as a help desk person. And I understand how it is when you're dealing with back-to-back calls and you'll get the people who are assholes. So I know how that feels. So I told her, I was like, yeah, I would never do that, especially if you're helping me. Like, I'm not going to try to, like, rush you or act like, you know, I don't respect you. So, yeah, she was like, we literally talked on the phone like we were friends. And she was like, oh, wait, actually, let's get back to your insurance and, like, going over your policy. But at the end, it kind of seemed like she wanted to be like, yeah, what's your Instagram? But
I'll be asking the girls what their Instagram is, too, like with T-Mobile and stuff like that. They just be
do they
always
give it to you?
Absolutely not. But they all sound like, especially the southern ones, they always sound like so
they're really sweet.
Adorable.
Yeah. But they're
But you
on a
want to see what
recorded,
they look like.
they're on a recorded line, though. So I'm pretty sure that's against policy.
To who? Have you ever
To their
actually
job.
Have you ever actually heard somebody say, "Hey, we were listening to your recorded line"?
Well, when I said before, when I worked in the call center environment, when there would be issues, and let's say, because I worked in healthcare, right? So a lot of the doctors, they were low-key assholes, and they would escalate their issues to either your manager or like the director or whatever, and they would go back to listen to the calls when there was something escalated. So it
Don't
just
listen
depends.
to my calls. My shit be sounding like, "Hey, girl."
Like a sex hotline?
Yeah, I already know. You know, trying to put the sexy voice on, like. Nah, don't even thinking about me.
That's gross.
Did you pay your bills? But
Okay.
how about you? Check on in for us.
Okay, I'm going to do my check-in. So, as you guys know, I don't know if you know, but if you listen to the last week's episode, I'm going to...
Sorry.
I'm going to Arizona on Thursday for Easter because Easter is this Sunday. And I'm traveling with Honey for the first time. So my 5-month-old puppy, he's in the other room. And
he attacked me.
Playpen. He didn't attack you.
He attacked me.
He jumped up to get... You know why, though? He likes being picked up. So when he sees new people, he automatically runs
up to
them.
Me. He just attacked me because he heard the door.
He ran up to you.
He's a guard dog.
Did he bark at you?
He bit at me.
No, he did not.
He said, "Arr."
He tried to get picked up.
No,
yeah, he's very
bite.
loving and sweet.
Violent ass puppy.
But so I'm kind of preparing him for like just being out, and I also bought a new carrier that has wheels because walking through the Newark airport with a damn dog on your shoulder, I've done it before with my last dog, and your shoulder will be on fire.
You should get the carriage from White Chicks. Remember the one she had?
No, the one that looks like a stroller.
I don't know. It's just they were going through the airport with a dog in their hand, so I just figured out.
Well, yeah, that's one of them that like, but you would put it on your shoulder.
Oh.
Yeah, but I have one now that you roll. So I bought it from Amazon. So I'm gonna get him some Benadryl because it's a 4-hour flight. You can give dogs Benadryl. They get Benadryl after their vaccines. Do you know what it goes into taking care of a dog?
You give it food and water and you walk it.
Huh? But when you go to the vet and get them vaccinated, the vet will give them...
Rusty was on all of that. He had the heart stuff. He had the
distemper.
Yeah, all of them things.
Bordetella, rabies. Yeah, they'll give them... what is it? Benadryl after the vaccines to just like help with any symptoms that might pop up. But you can also do that to relax your dog if you are traveling with them. So yeah, we'll see. He will be good. I'm manifesting that for 4 hours.
So are you giving him Benadryl because he's in pain or he's having an allergic reaction or to shut him up?
You do that to calm them down because some dogs, especially puppies on flights, like because they are under the seat, right? Like they're in front of your seat. You have a carrier that meets like the airline's protocols. But with him, I know for sure he can't sit still for that long. So this will help just calm his nerves and makes him tired so he can sleep through the whole flight.
So that's like putting melatonin with kids, basically.
Similar.
Shut up. Sit your words.
Similar.
What? No.
He's a good dog though. Like he's definitely a good dog, but I just know for 4 hours in a plane, like I don't know how he's gonna react, so I'm gonna give him Benadryl.
If he's anything like me, he's gonna sleep. Like I sleep on planes. I don't got time for all of that.
Yeah, I'll be knocked out on planes.
You know, my biggest problem with planes is not that I can't sleep. It's that once I wake up, I can't go back to sleep. Because now I'm uncomfortable. Now I'm annoyed. Now why are you eating them crackers and them peanuts all loud? Like why is your leg touching my leg? Where's my arm space? Like why? Turn your light off. Close your window. All these things are going to bother me. I'm on the outside. Why are you going to the bathroom right now? You're bumping me. You don't need to excuse me.
My last flight coming back from Houston, I was sitting next to a father and daughter, and I had the aisle seat. And the daughter, she had to be probably like 12 years old. She had to keep getting up to use the bathroom, even when I was knocked out asleep. Like the dad was like, hey, excuse me. And I'm like, because you know, you wake up, you're like, what the fuck? But yeah, she had to keep going to the bathroom. So that was kind of annoying. And then coming back, my flight was at 5 a.m. So that was a 3.5-hour flight. And it felt super quick because I was knocked out. I was like, oh shit, we here already?
Nah, that's the best when you can just sleep through the flight. Like I don't want to look at the sky. I don't want to see the clouds and take little pictures.
I do that when I'm up.
Yeah, for the first 5 minutes of the flight, and then take your ass to sleep.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to sleep.
My cousin, she was complaining because she had a middle seat. It was a last minute flight she booked. But she was like the woman who was sitting next to the window. She was acting like the window police, where she would open the shade and just like look like so she can see and then just shut it down.
So what, did she want to look over her shoulder just so she could see too?
No, she wanted to see out the window.
It's the fucking clouds.
It don't matter. It's
don't
beautiful.
Change.
It depends, because like we're like sky people, so we like to see. We like to see like just a nice view and like it's peaceful. I always take pictures when I'm on a plane. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Well, don't give your dog drugs. Don't give your kids
Benadryl is safe. Do you give your daughter melatonin?
No, only give her prescribed medicine from a doctor.
Okay, that's good.
But speaking of kids on drugs, that's not nice.
That's a crazy segue. Listen, we're gonna talk about the Nickelodeon documentary, okay?
And we are both Nick kids.
I know.
Well, you're a little later. Did you know Face?
No, I watched. It was like the big. I know what Face was.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah, it was like the blue, the red, and he was like a smiley face. He would pop up on commercials.
Yes.
Yeah. So, guys, if you have not watched the new HBO documentary on Nickelodeon and like the children who were a part of the shows, like All That, Zoe 101, Amanda Bynes Show, what's it called? Quiet on the Set?
Yep, Quiet on the Set.
Yeah, so we're just going to get into our thoughts about it and first impressions.
But first, before we do that, we're going to explain a little bit of the totality of the documentary. For those who don't know, it was a couple directors or producers. Dan Schneider, who was very prevalent if you watch Nickelodeon.
He
would always see
all
him.
of the shows, the hit shows.
Dan Schneider, and then Brian Peck, I believe, was his partner. And they just created and fostered a very uncomfortable workplace, not just for the actors, but also for people in the writing room, other directors, and of sorts. And it was an ongoing thing over years with a myriad of different child actors. Even some, like I said, some of the writers were impacted by just the nasty work that these dudes was doing.
Misogynistic.
And it goes to show you the power dynamic of being in these Hollywood spaces or these famous spaces that, some people will literally turn their heads and ignore a lot of shit.
Listen, I had my thoughts, and we're going to get into who I feel like is to blame, because I do think that there were some blame that weren't directed to the right people.
Okay.
So initially, I watched the first episode, and this one was mainly about the writers, so the women who experienced Dan Schneider in the beginning, like the two writers who were female, and they were the only ones who were the writers for the Amanda Bynes Show, I believe. And their story to me was really sad, because the one thing that one of the women mentioned was that how they had to split a salary between both of them, that one of the male white writers got his full salary. So that's like one of the main evidence of like them being discriminated against because of their gender. And then another one was, we have to get the names together of like who was who. But one of the women, she was expressing how they would talk to the women too. Like a lot of the jokes were very like sexual and uncomfortable. But what got me was when they mentioned, we gotta get the names. What's the guy's name that was like, he was supposed to be, the white guy who got charged for like sexual assault to children. Like he was the friendly guy, and he was had that online relationship with the little girl Brandy, who was 9 years old.
Was it?
What was his name? I don't
remember his name.
Okay, yeah, but that was the first story they talked about. So there was he was like a producer's assistant or executive assistant, and his job was to walk the child stars from their trailers to the set and get comfortable with the parents, so that the parents felt more at ease when their children were on set, to know that, all right, this is somebody that I know, and my kid should be safe with this guy. I believe he was about 20, he was in his 20s. And there was one story where one of the girls, she was 9 years old, she was an extra on the Amanda Bynes Show. And for some reason, he
Kristen,
became,
if I'm not mistaken, Kristen McPherson or something like that.
I don't know him. Oh no, that's
Drake.
Okay, yeah. Okay, but the girl Brandy, right? So the 9-year-old girl Brandy at the time. So he exchanges email addresses with her, and they're emailing back and forth. I believe the mom said that she would like spend time at his house. And honestly, just as a parent, like I don't have children, but like if you think about the situation and just have common sense and just like think about protecting your kids, that's not normal to me. For a grown man wanting to email your daughter, as innocent as it may seem, to check in and just be like, oh, how was your day? Like, I think that's weird.
Okay. I'll give you a little bit of a flip side. I'll use me as a personal example. Jaden's a little older. He's, well, not from these kids, but 13, right? He's getting to a point where his coach can reach out directly to him and relay messaging, and we would understand it, especially from if his mother is involved, where it's like, I don't know basketball stuff. So it's like, if the coach is reaching out directly to him about basketball stuff, I would be under the impression to want to respect it. But I'm also a very untrustworthy person when it comes to other people.
You shouldn't trust people, right, with your kids, period.
So it's always a matter of, even as that coach, I shouldn't want to directly reach out to your child. I should, if I do want to speak directly to him, reach out to both of you. So like his mom and I, we have like a group message with the three of us. So it's like all these messages that we get, we all need to be aware of. So that way we don't have none of these discrepancies.
Like it funnels through the parents, but he still can see the messages.
And then we have experiences and moments in history where we can literally look at this happening, where parents are just, turning a blind eye to their children being involved directly with these adults, whether it's R. Kelly's situation, right, where clearly these parents are involved with essentially trafficking their children to a known predator, right? Now, granted, did they know he was going to be predatory to their children? I can't say that factually, but it's hard for me to say, yo, you ain't know R. Kelly was fucking these girls.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with someone recently who we were just talking about how people change when it comes to money, whether it's parents, people that you know personally, but when there's any type of financial gain involved and you're getting paid, because with these parents, like now their children are able to pay the mortgage with their salaries or just do a lot more stuff because now they have a stable income, right? And I do feel like what you just said, some parents, they did turn a blind eye, and even though they had an inkling, like for example, I didn't want to get into this so soon, but fuck it, we're just gonna get into it. So Drake's dad, right? Like he was saying initially when Drake started, and this is Drake from the Drake and Josh show. So when Drake started to go to these auditions, he started on the Amanda Bynes show. His dad noticed that, was it Brian Peck? What's his name?
Oh, which director? Was it the big one or the small one?
Not Dan Schneider.
Yeah, Brian Peck.
Okay, so he noticed that Brian Peck, he started to get like real close to Drake, right? Like he would caress his arm, like he would just do things that made the dad feel uncomfortable. And it got to the point where they explained that Brian Peck was trying to like put a wedge in between him and his dad and try to say like, oh, your dad shouldn't be a manager anymore. And Drake, because, at that age, I think he was like 12 years old, like you are very easily manipulated and vulnerable. And he took advantage of that. So for me, I didn't like the fact of the dad, like Drake's dad, he did step away. Like he did allow Brian Peck to create that wedge in between his son. And unfortunately, he did get abused by this man, by this producer. And then his mom would allow Brian Peck to pick up Drake because, the sets were too far and he was doing all this coaching with him. But I'm kind of like, well, where's the mom? Like, why didn't the mom be on the show? Because I do feel like they do have some guilt of what happened to their son, as they should, because you didn't really protect your son the way he should have been protected when a grown-ass man was clearly being a predator to your son.
And again, I like to make this relative because I think a lot of people have that perspective of how could they let that happen, right? But I do believe this could happen to anyone. And I only say that because, like, you just talked about the guy picking him up. Like, Jaden's coach will pick him up and take him to a game or take him to a basketball thing if his mom and I are both heavily involved in something else, right?
I don't believe that, only because, and I think this was still episode 3 of the show. So when Drake mentioned how he got a girlfriend and he wasn't spending as much time with Brian Peck or whatever, his girlfriend's mom, he literally said she knew within 6 seconds that something was wrong. So I feel like if his parents were actually involved, like how you are with Jaden and his coaching and stuff like that, this would have never happened, because she instantly knew. She was like, why is this grown-ass 40-something-year-old man calling you like crazy, calling a house phone, upset with you? She knew something was off.
So, again, I'm not justifying anything, but I do think that it is very, very clear dynamics with the way predatory men operate around children, right? And I'll never forget, it was always this guy, and I don't know if he was a predator. I don't know if he ever touched any of the boys or anything, and I don't want to say no names because I don't want to implicate anybody on anything. I don't know him personally, but he would always be around with all the young athletes. And
was he a dad?
He was just an older dude.
So he didn't have no relationship with any of the boys?
To my knowledge, right? But this is like sports agents where it's like, oh, I know you might be famous in the future, so let me be the guy that's going to put you on and connect you with this and that, right? While it might not be sexual or it might not be physically abusive, it's that mental deterioration that's happening from these adults because they know they can take advantage over it. So I'm going to give you a quick little story because I don't know if you know about a guy named Chris Webber, right? He was one of the biggest basketball prospects of all time. And he went to the University of Michigan. And he had an agent. So the agent was funneling him money. You remember in college, you couldn't get paid to play sports. So he was funneling him money under the pretense that when you get to the NBA, don't forget about me, right? Like, that's what these dudes do. They put so much emphasis on these kids, whether it's a sexual thing or whether it's a physical thing or just it's like a bullying tactic.
So then let me ask you a question. The guy that you mentioned that was just around, like, what happened with him?
I felt like he was under that same guise of like, I'll do everything I can right now to get you where you need to go. But deep down, just bring it back to me.
Was he a part of like Jaden's journey?
No, he's older, way older, like probably 20 years before Jaden even got in the picture.
Okay.
But he would always be around.
Oh, for like when you were an athlete.
Yeah,
okay.
he would always be around.
Did you and your what is it called?
I don't know.
Athletes?
Team?
Co-athletes? But did your team, like, did anyone know him or did any of them have a connection? He was always around. He didn't talk to anybody? He
talked to the good ones.
Okay.
Like, his focus was, if you're a great athlete and I can do something with you in terms of getting you to a university or a pro level, then I'm going to get you some sneakers. Do you know any of your teammates who benefited from having him around? I don't know if benefited is the word. I know.
Or they got something positive out of it.
They got some connections. They got different exposure to bigger leagues and stuff like that.
Okay, that was what I was asking.
But that's how they do. So when you get in these situations and you have a person like Brian Peck who's, hey, I'm just trying to make Drake the biggest star in the world. It comes off to a parent like, oh, yeah, it's my son's best interest in mind. Look how much he cares.
I can understand that because they did actually mention how Brian Peck did tell Drake's dad how he worked with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they showed videos of him with Leonardo DiCaprio, which is one of my favorite actors, how he was like touching, like, caressing his arm and just doing little weird ass things. And I don't know, like, I just feel like parents who are actually trying to protect their kids regardless of a financial gain, shit like that wouldn't fly. Because, for example, the black woman who was the son of the boy who was on All That, like, they had him doing like weird, uncomfortable things, but she was the parent who would like speak out and ask questions and be like, nah, I don't really like that. And then it came out that they didn't want him on the next seasons because his mom was too outspoken, but she was protecting her kid. But that shows me a parent of like, I'm not gonna just let my kid go through any type of like trauma or abuse because, I'm gonna get a check from that. And I do feel like there are a lot of parents who they accepted that and looked the blind eye, and now, their kids are dealing with trauma. One story for me that, like, was very uncomfortable was when they talked about Amanda Bynes and her relationship with Dan Schneider. Like, I thought that was fucking weird out the gate.
Yeah. But he was weird with her from the moment that he met her.
She was a child. He was probably grooming her.
Yep.
And then, because I believe it was one of the actors when they were all on the set of All That, and she was like the new young face, right?
It was Katrina, not Kristen McPherson, whatever I said. Katrina Johnson was her name. I just looked it up.
Okay, yeah. So when she was saying that Amanda Bynes was basically her replacement, they would have school on set, and there would be times where like Amanda Bynes would just go missing because she's getting extra teaching or some training from Dan Schneider, and then
creep ass.
Right, and then come to find out, she gets her own spin-off show. She would always be rubbing his shoulders and shit. I don't know, like I'm kind of like, well, where was her parents in any of this too?
But I like to be realistic, right? And not saying that this is how I think, But I think a lot of people would be like, what's wrong with it? A lot of people would be like, yo, you got the opportunity to be a superstar, a megastar, bring all this generational wealth to our family. If you can't take a sacrifice, then you don't deserve it.
What's the sacrifice?
Letting this sloppy, nasty old man
caress and abuse your
That's
child?
how some people will look at it. You know how many people do so much for less.
First of all, with Hollywood too, like there is a stigma where they do a lot of child pedophilia. Like there's a lot of things and messages in the shows. Like they mention how with apparently Victorious, like that show was like the main one where they would do like weird sexual innuendos, and they were all in high school. And these were supposedly Dan Schneider's jokes that he thought was so funny. But like as an adult, if we were to go back and watch these shows, we'd be like, what the fuck? Like this is inappropriate.
But this is also why it's important to watch TV with your kids, right? And my cousin, he was born in 2000. So how old would y'all be?
Who? I was born in 94.
My bad. But we're 11 years apart. So he was growing up in the iCarly era, the Hannah Montana era, different things like that. So while we would just watch the same shows because I was coming from school and I would just need somewhere to stay, and I would sleep in my cousin's room. And I'd be like watching these shows, and it's just like, this is so weird. Like, but it's like I got a different
iCarly in the beginning.
I got a different vantage point though because I'm older. So it's like I'm able to see, like, you know, this is some awkward television. But, you know, if this is what the kids like, it's what the kids like. Like, we were watching Rugrats. All them jokes were adult jokes. Dr. Lipschitz was an adult joke. SpongeBob had nothing but adult
like
jokes.
An animation and actually using underage children. Like, for example, with Zoe 101, like, her best friend, she was very boy crazy, and they lived in a boarding school. So to find out that the girl who played her best friend, it affected her, and she feels like there's some like long-term life trauma that she's dealing with, and now she's on that show, quiet on the set, talking about how like she always had like short skirts she had to wear, and she was always like just doing weird things where like there was things splattered on her face. Like there was just so many weird ass sexual jokes, and for them to be like underage doing all that, I'm kind of like, the parents were there, no, when they read the script, because they do table reads. Like they read the scripts before they're recording, and I feel like it's not only the parents, but it's also the production team. Like everyone who is a part of this is to blame.
How often do you see inappropriate things and you immediately say that's inappropriate?
I think it's different when it comes to children.
Why?
Because they're vulnerable and they don't have anyone to protect them, and that's what the parent is there supposedly to do. Regardless,
I'm not justifying it though, and I'm only saying that because I think a lot of things are seen as childish, right? So if we all know that this is childish, that's the term that we use for most inappropriate things.
Well, for example, when they showed the Drake and Josh show, there was a point where they were it was like a pickle coming out of a hole. That's a glory hole. Like, that's a sexual joke. Like, there's no like, oh, this might be inappropriate. Like, that, we all know that's inappropriate. So to have that on like a Drake and Josh show.
If you watch that episode at 12, would you think that that's inappropriate?
But it's not children that's creating the show, though.
I understand that, but parents aren't watching these TV shows, right? Now, we know from a hindsight looking in, these adults are fucking creeps. Like, you're disgusting, clearly.
Okay, so knowing what we know now from watching the Quiet on the Set documentary, would you let Jaden watch, let's say, Zoe 101 or Drake and Josh? I
would always tune into the things that they're watching. So, like, whatever Nori watches on TV, I get to see it. Like, I know what's Baby Shark about. I know what Coco Melon's about. When it starts to progress, I know what, like, Jaden, like, what the fuck did he like? He was, like, in some show. And it's like, I need to look into it. He was listening to battle rap from Superman and Batman on YouTube. I'm like, hold on. It's battle rap. Are they cursing? But
you was that parent that was like, hold on, like, let me make sure this is appropriate for you.
But that's the trick. It's not a matter of if the people in these studios are making good TV, inappropriate TV, great comedy, whatever the case may be. You as a parent, you can control all the content that your kids intake, for the most part, outside of like going to school and getting peer pressured and whatnot. But we control that. So when Jaden, he listened to this song called Suicide from XXXTentacion, and he was like 8, 9 years old. I'm like, you're not listening to that. You don't even need to know what the word suicide means.
But that just shows that is a parent who is involved, and you actually care what your child takes in.
And yeah, I do think that these parents, I don't know what they were watching.
But like, okay, let me ask you another question. So let's say Jaden had an opportunity to go on Nickelodeon and do one of the shows or had his own spin-off show. Would you be like that parent who's like very hands-on? Or let's say you had a someone who's like a acting coach, very well known, and you see he's doing like weird little things like just caressing his arm or something like that. Like, how would you react?
The easy thing to say is I'm going to jump all over top of him and stop that shit. But part of it is I don't also want to be that guy that's going to make assumptions. And now I'm over here being overly aggressive towards this person based on an assumption. So it's a weird little like it's a line in the sand that have to be crossed before you can really jump on top of things like that. It's a video going out about a dad at a basketball game who the kids were fighting on the court and another dad touched his son and then the dad came out and attacked the dude, right? Half the people are saying, great job, Dad. Don't touch my son. The other half are saying, horrible job, Dad. Why don't you work on conflict resolution? So,
what would be your views on that?
So it's different, right? I've been in situations where I probably should have been a little bit more aggressive and physical. But I already know if I do that, I'm going to be the bad guy. So it's like I try to be a little bit more of a conflict resolver, work through communication and conversation. My son's not getting touched. He's not getting abused. So I don't necessarily have to get to that level. But if it gets to that level, then I'm with the shits.
Yeah, I would say for just a documentary purpose, Drake's father, he did say that he didn't want his son to lose out on opportunity because he's being just like too clingy or something. Like he would always be watching. That was one thing that I liked that he did say, was that he would always be watching whenever Drake was with Brian Peck or whatever, but there was never unsupervised visits. And I think once the dad stepped out of the picture and he was solely just being in his like taken care of by his mom, the mom, she didn't want to drive far to different places where Drake had to record, and that gave the opportunity for Brian Peck to come in and basically abuse their son. So I just think like, I don't know, like parents, like those level of parenting where you're just so like, oh, they'll be okay, they're in great hands. Like I feel like with children, you never know who's being a predator. Like they should always be watched when they're not in your care, or it should be by someone who you do trust to watch your children. So I don't know, like I just thought it was fucked up.
It's
because I don't think it should have happened.
I don't think it's anything that you can do to stop it. I really don't. Look at everything that's happened throughout the course of time. There is no face of child predator. There is no face of a child predator, right? Whether it's a priest, whether it's a coach, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a parent, an uncle, a classmate, a brother, a sister, right? There is no face for it. The only way that you can prevent a child from being abused is by what's the word I'm looking for? Arming your child with how to respond to that type of behavior, right? First thing I ever taught Jaden was how to defend himself. Because at the end of the day, I can't be everywhere. Your mom can't be everywhere.
I disagree.
So you're gonna be at school with your kid?
No, I disagree.
You're gonna be at church with your kid?
You just said there's no way to prevent it. I disagree.
I don't think it is.
Because I have a cousin who she has daughters, right? And she talks to her children. Like she has these conversations where like, if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, please come and talk to me. Like you have to keep that communication open, because it is an uncomfortable conversation. But I think if you start having these conversations at a younger age, like kids know, and they can they know like what you are saying to them, and they may not be able to basically articulate like, okay, yes, but they know when something isn't right. So she tells her daughters, like, if something's not right, come to me and tell me. And there was unfortunately a situation where, thank God, like her daughter wasn't abused or anything, but her daughter came to her at a young age, didn't feel comfortable with this behavior, and then my cousin instantly like stopped having her spend time with said person and whatever, and that was it. So I think like if you are talking to your kids about these situations, then it's not just all fun and games and like you're having the serious conversations, that does arm them for any potential interactions with any type of pedophile.
And that's essentially what I was saying. I wasn't saying like it's gonna happen to you. I'm saying,
yeah, because I was like, wait a minute.
No. I was saying the way that you prevent it is by arming your child with information like that, right? Because it can happen at any.
It can be anyone.
With anyone, right?
Yeah.
At any time. That's essentially what I meant. So sorry for that confusion, y'all. I don't want y'all to think everybody getting abused out here.
Yeah.
But
Mar was like.
But I'm saying like. I had to teach Jaden like, yo, if a man is uncomfortable, kick him in the balls.
It doesn't sound like he's been in those situations, which is great from what you know, right?
Praying to God that it hasn't happened.
Yeah, but I do think with daughters though, like unfortunately, like girls, they are more prone. Actually, no, I don't want to say boys or girls are more prone, but I've just heard stories more of like girls in the family being abused rather than like the boys. So yeah, like I just think just have those conversations with your kids and just make them feel like you are a safe space they can come to and talk about when they're feeling uncomfortable with somebody.
Yeah, and I think today with the Me Too movement as a very prominent movement for just speaking out in general, I think it's helped. We've seen documentaries like these come out a lot more where people are able to express themselves. And the first thing that we always say is like, what took you so long? Like, why didn't you just come out when it was happening? But it's hard.
I think that's such a fucked up response to tell a victim. Because sometimes too, like there is a side though where there are women who are trying to just get money, right? From a guy who is well known and very financially stable. So they're going to make up a story that he did something to her so she can get some type of return. But on the other hand, there are a lot of victims who they feel like they don't want to be blamed and why it took them so long. Like maybe they had to go through their shit to feel comfortable having these conversations. This reminds me of the conversation we had with Jasmine when she was talking about, and this is Jasmine from the episode where she talked about having an intimacy with God, not Dr. Jazz, because we had two Jasmines.
We had three Jasmines. Or Jazzes.
Jazz, yeah. But this is the second or third Jasmine. Anyway, she was telling us a story, very vulnerable, of how I think she said her uncle or someone close in the family abused her, right? And it took her years to just work through that trauma. And then she saw the guy in a family environment and she confronted him. Like she told him, like, I forgive you. And she honestly didn't want anything from him, right? Like she didn't want an apology or whatever the case. Like she just wanted to let that hurt go for herself. So I just think like with victim blaming, like they need time, however that looks, because it's different for everybody, to work through their shit and then either come forward and let everybody know publicly if it was like a celebrity or something. But, you know, it's very personal. Like it's a personal journey.
Yeah, in regards to Nickelodeon and just the history of our now hindsight looking back, did your views on the shows change?
My views changed on the Amanda Bynes show. I'm not gonna lie. Like just to see how she was groomed at a young age and how she is now, where like there was a point where she went through her DUIs. There were pictures of her just looking very mangled and crazy. Like she was going through some shit. So, they were really good shows though. Like I'll give them that. Like as a child watching them, like the Amanda Bynes was one of my favorite shows growing up. But to watch it now as an adult, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much.
For me, it's like all that Kenan and Kel.
They didn't talk too much on Kenan and Kel.
Because they were older. So they might not have had to experience that. But even if they did, I don't think Kenan Thomas... Is it Thomas or Thompson? Kenan Thompson. I don't think he would come out and disclose of anything now that he's a super successful Saturday Night Live. He's literally the face of Saturday Night Live right now.
Yeah, and when I saw Dan Schneider, I instantly thought of Good Burger because he was the manager on Good Burger.
Oh, I just thought he looked like a Good Burger, like a Mondo Burger.
Bruh.
But I was like, is that the damn manager from Good Burger? And then come to find out he was the producer for all of these shows. I was like, oh shit, like I didn't know that.
Yeah. I also feel like he's one of those guys who, I don't want to call him an incel. Do you know what an incel is?
What's an incel?
It's somebody that's involuntarily celibate. That means that he can't get no pussy on his own without paying for it.
I mean, it could be. Like, it could be just, like, his own insecurities because in his early stages of acting, like, he did play the fat friend, right? Like, they always made him the butt of the joke and all of that stuff. So I'm sure that did play a part of why now, like, when he has all this power, he's taking advantage of it, calling women out of their name and just being like a real dickhead because he probably went through his own level of trauma and now he's at a higher level where he can control people. So he's going to just do what they did to him.
And we talked about comedy before, like what encourages and inspires some people in their comedic chops, right? Like whether it's Kevin Hart being called short or Monique being called fat, right? If he has to bear that brunt of all this scrutiny and ridicule every single day, every single show, there is going to be some kind of trauma there. Like, we don't just let jokes absorb and rub off on us. Sometimes that shit hurt. And maybe this was his way of getting his joke back, getting his lick back. Maybe he was a little too literal. But I just don't get it. And it's not just a Nickelodeon thing, though. This is a history of child stars and entertainment.
Yeah, like I think it's crazy that the child stars who we kind of thought they had like the picture perfect life, like the Aaron Carter, the Amanda Bynes, who else? Britney Spears,
Zach and Cody. Please, I hope nothing happened to Zach and Cody because they had a sweet life.
Bruh.
Did they really? Hopefully they don't come out with a documentary.
Hopefully.
But I'm just saying, like, from the outside looking in, and that's why I feel like with any relationship or person, not even just celebrity, I don't idolize people in a way where I feel like I want to be them. Because behind the curtains, there could be so much going on that we have no idea, and we won't find out until years later. Now we got a Quiet on the Set documentary talking about all the trauma that went on behind these kids' shows.
Did you idolize any of them when you were a child?
I didn't.
Did you ever want to do like any of this?
I just really enjoyed the show. I mean, I would say for all that, it looked fun. Like as a kid, it looked fun to be like on a show with all of your friends and just like having a good time. Like that's what it looked like. But I kind of thought it was a little weird that the black girl with the dreads, what's her name?
What is it, Genevieve or Giovanni or something?
Okay, look up.
Something with a G.
Yeah, so with her, she made it seem like she had the best time of her life. Like she had it seemed like a yearbook. Everyone wrote little messages in there. Dan Schneider wrote in there too. I think it was Brian Peck. But Brian Peck wrote in there too. Okay, Giovanni Samuels. So with her, like, her experience did seem a little different from me and things that she remembered. One thing she's mentioned was how Dan Schneider, it did seem uncomfortable at times on the set, but for the most part, like, she had a good time.
But she's also the black girl.
You think that, like, played a huge part of why?
I do. I think even the one girl, I don't remember what show she was on. When she said her mom was speaking out, she ended up getting, like, cast aside. I don't know if it was the Amanda show or something. But it's like...
Oh, I remember. Yeah, that girl.
You're not the focus. Like, I'm here for the stars. Like, you're essentially dead weight. If I don't need you, I don't have to have you. Like, you can be funny. Because she was on the show with Drake before he got to Drake and Josh. And she was saying, like, oh, like, I can see Dan has his favorites.
Right.
So it's like, it sucks because it's like, hey, maybe I wasn't the one that was abused, but it's
But it worked to her advantage, though.
Yeah, and it's
being the black girl that no one really like wanted to give her that spin-off show, even though she was a star and she was very charismatic, and it looks like everybody loved her because she had pictures with everybody.
And then Keke Palmer was also on Nickelodeon. But I personally believe that she wasn't featured in this because she had a very different management style. If you know her mama, Keke Palmer's, her mother is there on the forefront. You ain't getting nothing past Keke without getting into her mother.
Yeah, that goes back to the kids that were abused. Their parents, I feel like, were kind of null and void because I do think if they made it more apparent that they were present and they were close, a lot of this stuff may not have happened to this extent.
But look at what happens when you see people with present parents like that. You love the Ball in the Family, right?
I used to watch that on Facebook, yeah.
Everyone wants to criticize LeVar Ball for, oh, you're too brash, you're too visible, let those kids do blah, blah, blah. But those are my children. I don't need you to tell me how to parent my children. I need to protect my children because when shit hits the fan, where are you? Right? Lonzo, LaMelo, LiAngelo, they went through everything that they went through. And the moment they have a fall off, you ready to jump down on their throats. You ready to just penalize and point fingers. And it's like, no, I'm there. I'm their father.
I think that's parenting, though. But it is different when you're recording you being a parent and then now there's a show. But people are going to have their opinions regardless when you put out any type of content. So I think like you just being a parent and just showing that you care. Because to me, when I would watch Ball in the Family and LeVar would just be a part of everything that the boys were doing, I saw that as an active father. And I was like, oh, like that's dope that he's really like pushing his sons to the best of their ability, which goes back to what we were saying with Kenny and Raph, and they were talking about just pushing boys physically to their best of ability so that they can be the better version of themselves. So that's how I saw LeVar in that show.
But nowadays they're criticizing a lot of parenting styles, right? And one of the most criticized parent is the helicopter parent. Have you ever heard of a helicopter parent?
I heard of it, yes.
Before I give a definition, because I got the different types, we're going to do some reading today. It's crazy how present parents are often looked at like a problem because a lot of these children, whether it's a pageant child or if it's a child athlete or a child prodigy singer, it's like I want control over that child as the director or the producer. It's like I want that. Meanwhile, that's my child. Like at the end of the day, I'm the only person that cares about this child more than anybody else. So I can't just relinquish that, right? So for those who don't know, helicopter parenting is a term that gained popularity in recent years, referring to parents who are overly involved in their children's lives. This parenting style involves hovering over various aspects of the child's life, from academics to social interactions. So they actually consider a couple behavioral impacts in terms of a parenting style, which is warmth, which is, just your emotional climate with a kid, control of behaviors, control of authority, your expectations for your child, and acceptance of what your child got going on. So the 4 types of helicopter parents are the tiger parents. A lot of Asian parents are looked at like this, where it's all about high achievement. It's all about being strict on making sure that all your behaviors, all your expectations are controlled. Okay. Acceptance is moderate and different things like that.
Got you. So that looks like a pretty long article, but thank you for the information. What I would say, though, about a helicopter parent, I think it depends on how they're trying to be a helicopter parent. When it comes to either sports, entertainment, they even had shows about just the parents when the daughters, like, the dancing dolls, even, with the kids was like in the pageants and whatnot, like they would always show the parents and how they were going back and forth bickering, or they want their kid to have more of the spotlight. So I think it's different when you are just trying to be there to show support for your child. when you're trying to be the manager, trying to produce, you're telling the actual producer or executive, like, no, they should be doing that. I think that's when the boundaries get crossed. Like, you can still be a parent and still show up and still, participate when needed and just protect your child. But when you're trying to do the professional's job at the same time, when you don't have that training, I think that's when things get a little blurred. And the kid is now looking at you like, let my coach me because, they're the ones who are running the team. So I think it comes down to the parent, like, just knowing their place and not trying to take control when, they don't need to take control in that way, but still protect their child and make sure they're not being taken advantage of.
I think that's one of the hardest things as a parent. Is something that I've had to learn, to not coach the coach. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes you can see it, like,
especially in sports, right?
It's easy for me because I've played basketball. Like, I think I'm more of a cerebral athlete than I am a physical athlete anyway. So it's like I think things through. Mm-hmm. And when I see it and I see a coach not being able to utilize certain things, I be,
you judging her. I'm like, listen, I would have done this different. Mm-hmm. Do you voice that?
Not to a coach, no. Okay. I don't voice that to a coach because that's not my job. I do voice it to Jaden. What I would tell him is the whys. Like, 'cause I'm always big on opportunities.
So then my question to you is, when you see that the coach could have done different things your way and then you tell Jaden, do you then expect him to follow what you told him or still do what the coach is saying?
I don't tell him to do anything different than what the coach is saying, except for what the coach is saying to do it different. It's a weird. Let me explain it.
So you're trying to control shit.
No, because it's like he's on the court. So if he's doing what the coach is telling him, I want him to see why the coach is telling him that to make it work for him. Because the coach doesn't know how to explain it because he's not like a real basketball coach. He's a dad doing it because his son needs a coach. Right?
Okay.
So it's like his premise is there. Now his execution isn't because y'all are the ones that need to execute it. So
have you ever just like had a separate conversation with the coach and just
we talk, but at the same time, I more so will try to pop in for a practice here or there and show them little tips and tricks, things that I would just tell Jaden anyway. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like Jaden's a leader. So if you're a leader on that court, you are the one that's going to communicate this to your team. Your coach really should only be calling plays and making substitutions. Mm-hmm. So it's your job to put your team in position. So even as an actor or something like that, like if you see shit going wrong, step in and step up. Like, and if I'm on the outside looking in and I can tell my son, like, hey, that person is treating your teammate a little wrong, step in. Like, yeah. I have no problem doing that. I'm that guy. I'm not going to go directly to the director or the principal. I'm not going to go into the school and be like, shit is wrong.
But you'll talk directly to your son and just let him know, like, hey,
if it's my son, you might get me to go up there and say shit is wrong. But if it's somebody else, I'm... Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard. It's really difficult.
I can only imagine. Yeah, definitely being a parent, it does take a lot. But, this was a very heavy episode. But we did just want to talk about this documentary because, like we all, well, not all, but our generation, we did watch a lot of these shows. So to really see the behind the scenes, at least for me, like I was like, damn, that's so fucked up. These children had to go through that. But we are getting to the end, so we are gonna just do our happy hour moment, and this is the last episode of March.
No, I think we're in April.
Okay, so we're not gonna do the Woman History.
We could
Month.
do a joke. It's April Fools.
I don't have any jokes off the top.
Well, this girl told me she wanted to run some errands the other day, and I told her I'm right here. No?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, okay, so let's get back to our happy hour moment since March is over. This is going to drop in April. My happy hour moment is recently I've been feeling so much at peace and calm, and I feel like I have a lot of control over my emotions. And this may be a bit personal, but fuck it, like, we on our podcast, and that's what we do, is give relatable stories. So I've been going back and forth with if I wanted to work on a certain relationship or not, or just keep it as friends. And we just had a conversation where we were like, you know what, let's just keep it as let's just keep things as friends, because we've been just trying to force it for a while, and when you force things, you just know it just doesn't feel right. So since that conversation, I just been feeling like 1,000 pounds have been lifted off my shoulders, and I'm really just living in the moment and doing things that's just for my best interest, and I love that for me. So that's my happy hour moment.
I love that for you
Thank you.
too.
What's yours?
Before we get into mine, friendship is so important.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we often undervalue having a friend as a partner, right? The things that I value about you as a friend that's going to propel me to give a fuck about you is so underrated. Like,
and you can still give a fuck about somebody, but you don't need that intimacy relationship. And I feel like if you're forcing the intimacy, that's not natural. And if it's not natural, I feel like if there is confusion, that's not for you. And there's been confusion for me for a while. And during this conversation, I found out it was also from the other person's side too. And it was kind of like an aha moment, like, oh shit, like, okay, so it's not just me feeling like this. So we just had a understanding conversation, and it just turned out better than I thought. And yeah.
I just feel like we shouldn't be dating acquaintances. Right?
It wasn't a
not saying you.
Okay. Because I'm talking about my shit, and then I don't want to date acquaintances.
I was just giving a general observation of what I see in relationships. I think a lot of people are dating acquaintances, right?
They are.
And when you want to get married as your end goal of a relationship, one of the aspects and the tenets is marry your best friend. So you can't get to a best without the friend. So make sure y'all start establishing some friendships.
For me, like, I need to talk to you. And I've said this before, like, I have a very prolonged dating period. Like, it takes me a while to even want to see you in person. So I understand, at least at this age now, the magnitude of building that friendship. Like, we can spend time together and go out and do things without putting a title on it. I think when you start putting title and labels so soon, and you barely know this person, and now y'all pop up with a baby, and you're confused as to why things aren't working out, and there is confusion because you didn't take the time out to get to know them as a friend.
Word. And Dana's 90-day rule ain't for sex. It's for just meeting in the first place.
Yeah.
But my happy hour moment is I'm happy to be in this studio. Like, I think we take for granted how much not being in here with Marvin or any of the other individuals means, but like making videos on our Riverside app and all that kind of stuff, it just don't have the same feel.
It doesn't.
And while I'm giving Marvin a little bit of the credit and the cameras and this table and this microphone and these doors
And the lights.
my happy hour moment is spending time with Dana, because that is my friend.
Of course.
I value you, and I'm happy that we are continuing this trip. She just had a birthday. You know, she's 30 now, so now she's on
30 and thriving. Okay.
Now she older than me, so it's just.
I got my muscles out today too.
Where she was out here
gym.
looking like G.I. Jane, like
Can you see my muscles? Ooh,
Hulk Hogan.
My fucking bones crack. I need to drink more calcium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. I guess we're going to end this episode here.
Oh, I thought we had some, because you said, hold on. I thought we had some more to do.
No, because
like,
I fucked up my words.
Oh, I thought you were going to say if you wanted to join the podcast.
I was going to say that next.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
So if you want to join this illustrious middle seat with us, hit up our Gmail at woawpod@gmail.com.
And with that being said,
we outside and we out.
You know, I was going to read my whole article because I thought we was going through the whole 2
you're
hours.
wildin'. Like,